few weeks back, so disappointed was I with Civ 7, I decided to expand my video gaming beyond my beloved franchise. I played Old World fairly exclusively for about a month and had a really good time. Between it and Civ 6, I hadn't played Civ 7 in about 2 months, to the point where a couple of patches had been released. Some so heavily hyped that it was rumored Civ 7 was on the verge of becoming the game longtime Civ fans had hoped for. Legacy paths are now optional. Crises can be tweaked, maps are better, and large and huge maps are now included. The game is more sandboxy. Unlocks can be removed, allowing players more flexibility in Civ switching. At least, those were the rumors. So, after a bit of a hiatus, I decided to check it out. Welcome to Civilization Stories, where we explore alternatives to history through the lens of the world's most addictive video game. The hope with the release of updates and patches was always going to be that developers had seen the light and found ways to appease disgruntled fans, such as myself, by redeeming Civ 7's lost soul into something ardent fans would recognize as the Civ of old. Not the old game reskinned, but a game that retained the sensibility of those classic games and built on the mechanics that made them great, updating the franchise for 2025. No joke, from the opening screen, I was like, what the f? There was Friedrich whistling the theme tune. That was the first change I noticed. I kid you not. Now, listen, I'm getting old, and the memory doesn't work quite like it used to. But for me, that was a change. I had not seen that before. For me, that was a feature that did not exist when the game launched, which means it was added in an update. That means that while all of the negative reviews about Civ 7 were flooding in, Firaxis' development team, in their infinite wisdom, greenlit this. I imagine the roundtable brainstorming session where this topic was first brought up. Elite asked, okay, now that the game is out, how can we make it even better? A junior designer lifted their hand and, throat full of fear, probably muttered, what if Friedrich whistled the opening tune in the introduction screen? To which the lead said, love it. Get on that right away. You see, people, the game is perfect, so these are the kind of ideas we need. Nobody needed or wanted this. But to me, a player who has stood by Civ for 30 years, these are the things that show me that developers do not care. It is baffling. So, let's talk about some of these real changes. First, the positives. End of age countdown timer. Should have been there since the beginning. Fans of the channel will know my frustration with the age progress meter, so having this is really nice. Other positives. Nope. That's it. There's an age transition impact that allows players to choose between regroup and continuity. All this does is keep your units in the position they were in at the previous age and upgrades them to their equivalent unit of the next age. Now, instead of being able to toggle crises on or off, I actually have more work to do by manually disabling all of the different types of crises. Fucking chore, man. You can toggle on or off any legacy path you want. And there are large and huge maps now, which, as I will explain, is actually a bit of a problem. What hasn't been added? Civ switching on or off. What the f? Firaxis. This is so easy. I don't care about the legacy paths or the ages system nearly as much as the Civ switching. And oh man, you're about to find out why. So I decided to play as Pachacuti and began my game as the Mississippians, my first time for both leader and Civ. I chose a large map. It's hard to say what my real intention was for playing, and at the beginning I cared so little about really winning or anything that I had even forgotten to plug in mementos. Oops. Why is there no prompt for that? It seems simple enough. Just a little prompt. Are you sure you want to play without mementos? Whatever people are smoking over at Firaxis, please, I want some. I would love to bliss out as hard as they must be over there because they have an uncanny ability to make the painfully simple seem complicated as hell. Anyway, I was hopping around the map, going through the motions. Just because he's Xerxes, he decided to go to war with me. I hadn't done anything to him, but maybe ignore him a little more than he's used to. I was more or less on the back foot, but ceded none of my cities. But it put me on that old dreaded path of war, which kills any chance of building wonders or building science. In the end, I kicked Xerxes' ass, and he left me alone after that. I did what I thought was a pretty nice thing by helping out Egypt, who was getting picked on pretty hard by the popular kids, and that put me at war with Jose Rizal and Harriet Tubman. I did okay, but by the end of the age, I was so far behind scientifically that Harriet Tubman was beginning to invade my territory and kicking my ass pretty hard. Bless the end of the age. The continuity toggle does very little except put her and I at peace and back on an equal footing with the start of a new age. Worked out in my favor, but feels like cheating. The term continuity is questionable. Had things been the other way around and I was about to walk into Harriet Tubman's towns, I would have been pissed. But I was given a 10-turn warning, so that's nice. My performance in the Antiquity Age was middling at best. I only completed the Railroad Tycoon Legacy path. The Burning Arrow is a decent unit that kind of saved me. Moving along. It was time to play the Exploration Age. I plugged in a couple of mementos finally and became the Hawaiians, the great colonial empire of the Hawaiians, included no doubt to appease the disgruntled Gen Zers who fell in love with White Lotus Season 1. It's fine. Moving on. It was my first playthrough with them, and they're actually a pretty fun civ. Even though I used the Kahuna special ability maybe once, and I built a few Lowy Kalo, mostly because I had reached a point where I felt I had nothing else I needed to build in a couple of cities. Not sure what they did or if they helped. Now, looking at the end of the age screen, you might think that I did pretty average, but this is Civ 7, so don't let the numbers fool you. According to the legacies, you'd think Amina won the round, but no. By the end of the age, I had captured 4 of her cities after she declared war on me. I captured 2 cities that she had established in my homeland and 2 of her core cities a continent away. Now, as much as I like having a large map, here are the problems. As they relate to legacy paths, a core feature of Civ 7, because my lands were at the base of a funnel, the distant lands were at a great distance from my homelands compared to my continental rivals Harriet Tubman and Jose Rizal. Xerxes was virtually landlocked, which means that he and I were effectively cut off from the economic legacy path. Now, that doesn't bother me so much, but it is a huge problem that the legacy paths of the exploration age, and I can't highlight this point enough, a core feature of the game that all other mechanics were built around, rely so heavily on players interacting with the distant lands that in some cases, players can be completely shut off from. Sure, there are other legacy paths and ways to win the game, but there should be, more ways to accumulate legacy points along the various legacy paths than by a singular means. Also, I know you can now turn legacy paths on and off. Okay, but then why are you playing? The legacy paths unlock victory conditions, so without them, what becomes the goal? Also, for large maps, instead of increasing the settlement cap for players, they increase the number of players in the game. In my game, for the large map, there were 10 civs. Do you see the problem? Go back and watch some of my old Civ 7 content if you haven't already. Watch it all. I could use the views. In a couple of those old videos, I talked about the 3-card Monty of Firaxis bragging about having the most civs at launch ever. Because I only have the base game, with the 10 civs in the game, it means that all of the civs were included during my playthrough. So if you have only the base game, once you get beyond the Antiquity Age, you will see the same civs in the Exploration Age and Modern Age every damn time. Sure, the leaders will mix and match differently, but the civs will always be the same. And what happens if players with only the base game play on a huge map? This is the fatal flaw of Civ 7 that I have no idea how they will fix. I think it's worth exploring the idea of a toggle allowing civs to persist with their leader throughout the game just to avoid this problem. I realize that it raises a host of other problems like Antiquity Age civs steamrolling other civs in the beginning of the game and starting the snowball process that folks complain about, and that, as far as single-player games are concerned, I don't think is really a problem. I'll admit, for multiplayer, a huge problem. For single player, not a problem. Anyway, I felt like I kicked ass in the Exploration Age and chose to become Japan for the Modern Age. Again, I think playing as Japan was a first for me. And they're fine. Everything is fine. I'm playing on DD and I'm barely trying. Playing feels like autopilot. I was tough enough that players left me alone, and you know what? Holy I found myself making real progress in the space race. I also blew through the Railroad Tycoon legacy path and had all of my necessary artifacts for the Geographic Society and halted my production of the World's Fair so that I could finally get the science win. And of course, no Hall of Fame, no replay video, no way to recall what I had just accomplished. But I know for myself that I finally got that out of the way. I've won every victory type now, so I can close that gestalt, I guess. So, what problems still exist for Civ 7? Well, all of them. Everything that was a problem before is still a problem now. How they are still using that diplomacy screen with the leaders looking at each other, repeating, over and over again, I cannot understand. I had a pre-Steam workshop mod that somehow changed the view so leaders looked at you in the diplomacy screen, but after an update, it just ended up crashing the game, so I stopped using it. Firaxis, just take care of it. Get an intern on it. It cannot be that hard. Just fix it. Fix it. Every patch that gets released includes phrases like UI improvements and quality of life adjustments. Where? What? The game is still a gray mess. They've updated the intro screen between ages. There was almost nothing wrong with them to begin with. Sure, we get a little extra Gwendolyn Christie, and that's good. But holy hell, man. The game looks and feels like it did 6 months ago, which it should not. What does quality of life mean exactly at Firaxis? What constitutes a UI improvement? Another phrase bandied about in every patch is tweaks and balances. I'm playing on DD here with half a mind on my channel, cooking supper, and babysitting a couple of kids, and hitting all of the modern age legacy goals without so much as breaking a sweat. How do the AI players double my scientific and cultural output for 90% of the game and become so inept at preventing me from winning any way that I choose? Does everybody need to win a ribbon this badly? And I'm sorry. Now look, maybe they messed up so bad and the difficulties are all reordered and maybe Viceroy is the most difficult level. But if you've been playing Civ 7 and aren't winning on DAD, I mean, and I'm the one who's been ragging on min-maxers for the last 2 months, this does not require a math degree. When you get a growth event, there is zero thought that needs to go into this. Just count the icons. Pick the tile with the most icons. Do you want to put buildings in your cities? Put ageless buildings together. Put overbuildable buildings into quarters. Put the building where the yield that they are showing you is the highest. Like, what strategy is there, really? Same tasks every time. Tier lists used to be a fun thing to make and talk about in old Civ games. Gone. Because it doesn't matter anymore. There are just key paths and decisions for each victory condition. I'll make a video about that at some point, a step-by-step guide of how to win every victory condition. It is not hard. Which, by the way, Japan for the science victory, the last of the win conditions I was seeking, their Goish Shin, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, ability that gives you science for overbuilding is pretty handy and likely contributed to my ability to win a science victory, which, if you remember, didn't go so well for me in Antiquity because you don't really need to play a strong science game. However, I will say that a science victory requires peaceful play in the modern age above and beyond all things, which I find really strange. Someone's got to invent a Civ for the modern age. I'm thinking America, and yes, I know that they are already in the game, but that grants a free technology or extra science whenever a rival city is captured, doubled maybe if they are a different ideology, so that you can actually combine science and military. Think Alexander's ability from Civ 6. Anyway, if you've been on the fence about purchasing Civ 7, waiting for it to become a game worthy of the name Civilization, and have seen it on sale thinking the time might be right, my advice is to continue waiting. Civ 7 still has a long way to go. I will also say this, and now I'm talking right to you, Firaxis, and developers at 2K, etc. You've got serious fences to mend with your fan base. You've been so great for so long, and I want to continue to give you the benefit of the doubt. I feel certain that updates and patches will come in the next year and more. When an actual expansion finally comes and the mechanics of the game become complete and Civ 7 finally resembles a proper Civ game, that expansion should be discounted for players who bought the base game and should include Crossroads of the World and Right to Rule content for free. I urge you to keep scouring the Steam workshop for worthy ideas, and I will continue to make suggestions and keep the conversation going on ways to improve the game. My first suggestion is have a toggle for Civ switching, and at least for a while, pair leaders with their respective Civ. Test it out and see how it goes. As for fans of the channel, just a quick update on what to expect from me as the channel approaches the end of its first year. First, thank you for your continued support. This is a channel dedicated to Civilization, and I will continue to make Civ VII videos in spite of my feelings about the game. As for what I will be playing, I am hoping to finally find a way to play Civ IV again after almost 15 years or more. So stay tuned for that. I will also continue to play Civ VI from time to time. I do also plan to make a beginner's guide for Civ VI, which I know maybe sounds a little late to the game, but I hope there will be some value there, especially for players who want to play at a higher level and still have fun. I'm still enjoying Old World and will probably continue to play that a little bit as well. To any devs of other games out there who want me to check out your game, just let me know and we can try to arrange a way for me to play a game or two and give you an honest video review. I'm still a bit of a YouTube noob, but I am trying to be better at making good connections, so please be patient with me. Lastly, I do have some ideas for new directions that I want to take my little channel here that extends beyond video games. They will be surprises coming up in the next few weeks, but I hope subscribers follow me along for the ride. Until then, remember to keep playing and making your own civilization stories, your own amazing path through history, and I'll see you next time.